Hi, everyone. It's Lisa from Been There, Got Out. Sorry, we're starting a few minutes late. My guest today has hundreds of podcasts, but is not that familiar with doing Instagram Live, so we can call him an Instagram Live virgin. His name is Brook Olsen. His handle is High Conflict Diversion Program. And Brook, I see you, so let me invite you on. Let's hope we can get him on properly. But we just met maybe a month ago, and there he is. It worked.
Hi, Lisa. We got there.
Yeah, so that's half the problem. So I was just saying that we met maybe a month or a few weeks ago. We always say that our content is driven by our clients and more than one person, but then she kept reminding me, get in touch, get in touch. You got to talk to this guy, Brook Olsen. And, we've seen your name a lot. I think we've done some summits together, but we hadn't crossed paths. So we got in touch. We had a couple of very productive conversations, and I thought, ooh, this is someone we definitely need to talk to. So we recently did your podcast, and now it's your turn to be in the hot seat. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad this worked. And we're going to be talking about a bunch of things, but I think the underlying theme, which we both have in common, is that it's really important in these high conflict parenting and divorce situations to try to shield the conflict that's created. And usually it's by one party, but sometimes our clients get pulled into the muck and their own behavior contributes to that conflict, and they might not even realize it. So before you even introduce yourself, Brooke, can you talk about what differentiates a normal or co-parenting or normal divorce from a high conflict situation?
Absolutely. So, thanks for having me, Lisa. And the, the when anybody goes through a divorce, there is conflict. I mean, they're going through a divorce for a reason. Tensions are high. Some, they've been there a little while and it's not a big deal. Some people have had kids and they just are wanting to separate and go in different directions, but the kids are a focus. And they come in and they talk and they figure it out. I think in the early stages of almost any divorce or separation where kids are involved, tensions are high and there's an opportunity for things to get out of hand very quickly. So, the sooner people realize that this can cascade into high conflict when it doesn't have to, and there are ways to avoid that. It's important to have some coaching to help calm that whole system down. I was working with a client recently that everything was starting to escalate. It was a paternity, and this client was starting to take a strong stance because they had a negative advocate for an attorney. And I started to tap them on the shoulder and go, listen, let's slow this down. Let's find some other ways to navigate this so it doesn't have to go down that road. I think that the potential is always there, but the potential to dial it back is also almost always there. And I say almost always because there's a strong percentage of people with high conflict personalities that we get into that are going to perpetuate conflict. And my notion is any divorce, any custody litigation is going to take at least a year and a half to navigate through. That's kind of the baseline. And people don't understand that. They think that this is going to go really quick, and it's not. So having the ability to settle our clients' nervous systems down, have them to be problem solving, to have them being able to be in a solution driven mindset with the kids at the center of that is always what we're trying to do. And then giving them reasonable expectations and having them learning how to, if they are going to have an attorney, to be directing their attorney, not the other way around. And when we can do that, we can really greatly mitigate the high conflict outcomes in that. So the high conflict divorce, the high conflict custody, usually stems from two things, I think. One is one of the parents, um, I want to be careful of how I say this, has a problem really being in the notion of wanting to work with the other parent. I'm better than, I can do it better than, they're a danger to, or any of those that we can fill in the blank with. And on the other side of that conversation is usually a parent that gets sucked into that argument, that gets into a back and forth with them trying to defend who they are and not really looking at what is the next thing that I need to do to be with the solution of creating a parenting plan that makes sense so we can both navigate a child-centric piece. And I think with that second parent that we're talking about, um, not understanding that there are, by and large, guardrails to keep things from going into a high conflict piece through the system. So understanding that there are baselines of, if I'm going to go to court, if that is the end, which, by the way, most of these cases don't get there, but the high conflict ones do.
Mm-hmm.
But when we know what the baselines are, when we know what the law is, and how, if I'm standing in front of a judge with facts, not presumptions, not ideas, not beliefs, but facts, then there are sequences that go and happen here. And when we can understand that, we can just teach our clients to sit down, calm down, and take the steps needed to get to that.
Yeah. So Brooke,
Was
now
that a long run?
that was a long one. I was going to say, but now you need to introduce yourself, but you kind of talked about what you do in there.
Yeah. So I am the founder and director of the High Conflict Diversion Program. I have been doing this for over 20 years. I have classes for people that are in high conflict. I have a whole set of online stuff that's available for them. I've written the book, The Black Hole of High Conflict, which is available on Amazon. And my purpose is to educate. My purpose is to help people that are entering into this or stuck in this or in long-term litigation with this to get out and to really become child-centric in their focus. And people often think that they're child-focused, that this is all about the kids. And I think oftentimes that's not accurate, because they are trying to defend something that doesn't need defending. They are in a place of trying to fight off something that doesn't need to necessarily be fought off.
Oh, totally.
I believe in boundaries, and having my clients understand what those boundaries are in terms of communication, in terms of dealing with ancillary people in their lives. And boundaries, to me, are a neutral. It's a static. It's just there. And boundaries, oftentimes with clients that are in, or people that are in high conflict situations, move from being neutral or static into aggression. And aggression feeds the cycle. It adds energy to the cycle. So when we understand what reasonable boundaries are, we can disengage.
Yeah.
And we can just hold that boundary and sit down and go, okay, there are certain things that I need to do and I need not to do specifically. And those are the nuances here.
Yeah. I want to ask you about a term that you use that I know what it means, but I think it's important that people hear this term and learn what it means, because we have a lot of them in our lives, those of us going through these situations. What is a negative advocate?
Negative advocate is somebody that we're talking to that is feeding us information that is making us aggressive, that is telling us fight, to fight back, and to get into the weeds. And the negative advocates are often family members, friends, attorneys, and even therapists. And they don't understand the nuance of dealing with high conflict. And many negative advocates are people that have history in this stuff, that have been in high conflict divorces, custody battles, relationships, or families of origin that bring that stuff forward. That the top thought is you don't just sit there, you do something, and you engage and you fight back, and that isn't that isn't where we want to go here. And this isn't about being complacent or complicit with what's going on. This is understanding that um, you have the ability to run your life and to advocate for your children and your parenting on your own without the input of somebody else, especially when that input is always aggressive and always a fight, but also understanding in that conversation of psychologically what's best for your kids. And also understanding that if I am going to end up in court, and this is where you and I come into the conversation, what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And that is both a positive statement and a negative statement. The positive statement is who are you as a parent and what are you doing positively to take care of this process? So what are you contributing to the positive end of the parenting cycle? And also, on the other side of that, what are you doing that is negatively contributing to that? So we want to really magnify the one and detract from the other.
Yeah. So it's almost like, how do we diffuse the conflict without just giving in? There's ways to do that.
Right.
And so one of the things that, Brooke, you focused on that we do too is parallel parenting.
Mm-hmm.
What is parallel parenting?
Parallel parenting says basically this: you do you and I'm going to do me. But within that, there has to be a level of communication. And the level of communication is just about specific needs: health, education, welfare, basically. And it's a tricky platform to utilize because it has got a lot of nuance to it. To me, parallel parenting in the beginning is a do no harm model. It means that we're setting parameters for how we're going to do things, and it doesn't mean we are not going to communicate. It doesn't mean that. It means that we are going to communicate in a business-like fashion. Bill Eddy talks about BIFF: brief, informative, factual, and friendly. I like to add an F to that, being firm.
I was going to say, I always confuse friendly and firm.
Yeah. So they've got all of those pieces in that. And that I'm not going to gray rock, because that is something that is really confusing to people. I'm not going to engage. That's going to get you in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to communicate. That's going to get you in trouble. But how you do it is incredibly, incredibly important. So taking and getting help with that, having a coach like yourself or me or some of the other people out there that are really good at this, that can walk you through and teach you how to do this, not to do it for you, but to teach you how to do it.
And not to do it as a negative advocate. And that seems to be a big issue, because when we talked about negative advocates being people that love you and people that, like your attorney who you're paying to advocate for you, often it's kind of veiled in, I'm supporting you, I'm expressing my loyalty for you, I love you, I want you to fight, fight, fight. But I think people like you and I, Brooke, we could be positive advocates to say, we are not encouraging you to just give in and give up, but we need to focus on the things that matter to kind of shield the kids from the conflict and have that resolution based mindset, rather than just like, I am going to point out every deficiency and every mistake that the other parent made because I got to prove something, and it's going to come out in court and the court's going to punish them, because that is not going to help anybody.
That is, and it's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
Right.
And, a negative advocate, you think about, I think about when I was growing up. When you got bullied, you were told to go punch the bully in the nose.
Yeah.
And that may work on one level, but it adds to the problem and makes you part of the problem, because suddenly now you are the aggressor in that conversation. So what we're teaching our clients to do is to do that in a different manner of, how do I come back around here and how do I tell a story? How do I create a narrative that is not about who they are, but about who I am? And not about who they are as a parent, but how I parent and who I am as a parent. And not what they've done wrong, but how I navigate the terrain. And how we teach our clients to not add energy to the system. Rather than, don't just sit there, do something. My line is, don't just do something, sit there.
I love it. Yeah, pause, think, strategize.
We run when we're in conflict, we go into the fight, flight, freeze, fawn sequencing. The amygdala gets hijacked, the reptilian brain takes over, and we are suddenly outside of cognitive process. The two parts of the brain do not work together. They cannot work simultaneously. It's one or the other. And when we are in that sequencing, when we're in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. We're reactive. And the only way to get out of that is to take time and to learn how to trust that being uncomfortable and taking the time to navigate that sequencing, however long it takes, is what's in. It's the prescription here.
Right. Even just labeling it. Like, I think about what you said and how it applies to people in court, presentation in court, where the attorney, and this is something we coach our clients in since we're focused on the whole legal system, legal abuse stuff, is the other side. We already know their attorney's going to be a bully. We already know they're going to attack you, probably by trying to portray you as an unfit parent, an addict, like something is terribly wrong. So they're trying to get you in that emotional state to get you to not be able to think exactly. And so by making that very clear that it's not personal, that that's part of what they're hired to do, and teaching people how to expect it and how to properly behave when that happens and how to pause. Like, one thing attorneys do is rapid fire questioning. And so we'll talk to our clients about that and say, you don't have to let the attorney set the pace. You can slow it down and say, let me think about that. Right? That's part of what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And the client will typically hire an attorney that matches their personality.
Right.
And if we know that, and our client is chasing an attorney, they're going to recreate the dynamic between the attorneys.
Totally.
So having somebody that, I think there's two pieces here. doing what you do, Lisa, which is helping people go pro se, pro per in their attack, helps that person just be who they are, but giving them the skill sets they need to combat that other aggressive attorney in a strong, bounded, centered, present approach. And secondarily, if they're going to go chase an attorney, not to find somebody that is going to be complicit and is necessarily just, okay, we can work this out. We're not going to have to go to court. We can work with the other attorney and do this. It's got to be somebody that is strong, bounded, and that wants to tell the narrative and not be on the attack, because the attack does not work.
Right.
Judges don't like people yelling and screaming at each other in the courtroom. They don't like the back and forth. They want to hear a narrative that is problem solving.
Exactly. And there's so little time.
Mhm.
So that's how you actually present better too, especially as a pro se, is you go in and you say, basically, this is what I'm asking for, and this is why I'm entitled to it, and let's get to it.
Yep. And that's the biggest part of the solution, is knowing what it is that you want and being able to tell that narrative. And that is the biggest problem that most of the clients that I work with, whether they're coming to me fresh in the process or whether they've been in it for 5 years, can't answer that question. They can't answer that question cleanly. What is it that I want? Because when I ask them, they go, I want 50% custody. Huh. What does that mean?
How about I want punishment? I want the judge to punish
I want this
my
to be
ex.
fair.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That doesn't help the judge do his or her job.
So what is it that I want? And when that can be solved in a child-centric manner, it can be heard.
Right. I feel like one of the things that we encourage our clients to do is we say, we want you to be the proactive problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go into court thinking we're going to figure it out. You already come in there with a plan that's reasonable, of course, that makes sense, and say, here, Your Honor, here's what we were trying. You hopefully will have already exchanged it with your ex and their attorney to say, we've tried to work on it. What are the reasonable objections? This seems okay. And then let the judge draw his or her own conclusions as to why it's not fair or reasonable, rather than let's figure it out now. That could take however long.
Well,
Again, it's making the judge's job easier.
The judge isn't prepared to figure it out right there.
Right.
And they're going to extend it. They're going to tell you to go back and meet and confer and figure it out and come back to me with something. Mm-hmm. Well, let's come in there ahead of time. Let's have that all there, so when they can see it, they can hear it, they can go, this makes sense. Let's go with that. It may adjust later, but we're at least getting things in place that we can start to move. I think
right. And you look good when you come in like that. And you save money because you're not paying somebody, a lawyer, other people to wait as you're figuring it out.
Yeah. Or to figure it out for you and then to take it. Because again, working with a good coach, they're going to walk you through those pieces of not only what is it that you want, but is what you want makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And why?
Right. Because sometimes what you want doesn't make sense. Sometimes your capacity or your ability to meet that what you want isn't there. Your competencies aren't there. So if you want that, how do we improve your competencies? If you want that, how do we improve your capacities? And capacities are time related, capacities are competency related. And as a parent, I don't want my clients shooting for equal custody or more than equal custody if they can't meet that criteria, because that's going to explode in their face if they're in front of a judge. That's where they're going to get attacked, and that's where they are going to not be successful. So if they could go in and say, this is what I want, this is why I want it, and these are the constraints that are there that I meet, then there's no reason for that not to occur, right?
And that's understanding the law too. Like, what are the best interest factors? How can you use them in your storytelling? How can you be persuasive by using the law to persuade the judge to give you what you need to get out of there?
And different states have different standards, right?
Yeah,
And
but a lot of it is there, at least with best interest factors or custody factors, a lot are very similar, like the same basic kind of stuff.
right, and I'm thinking of like places with like Texas that have standard um, possession orders. I hate that term. I hate that term.
I know, possession.
Right. But understanding what those mean and how you are going to navigate that, because in those places it's usually a little on the unbalanced side, and how do you get that balance, and also knowing where the court biases are and how to navigate those pieces. I think, having our clients go in and sit in a courtroom and listen to judges and figure out where they're at and how to approach those pieces. This isn't a static piece. And so many people want to abdicate their responsibility, abdicate their power to somebody else because they're afraid, or they don't understand, or they don't feel qualified. And as soon as you abdicate your power, things go awry. And that's true with your attorney. If that's where you're going to go, if you're going to have an attorney, you can't just turn it over to them. It doesn't.
That's repeating the same unhealthy cycle as you had in your prior relationship, where, I mean, the whole nature of coercive control is you've basically given up, often unconsciously, your authority to somebody else. So here you're just coming out of one and going right into another dynamic like that.
Exactly. And I like that statement that you just made, Lisa. And the other piece that I think I want my clients to understand really early on is that when they're dealing with the other parent as this process unfolds, going back to this differentiation that we started with between what's high conflict and what isn't, I think everybody can figure that out very early on. My attorney, my attorney or my therapist, when I was going through my first divorce, gave me this statement. I pass it on to my clients all the time. As with the marriage, so goes the divorce.
That's interesting because my divorce attorney's paralegal said something similar. She said, once you leave the marriage, the power dynamic increases, but it's tenfold what
Right.
it was.
Right. So it's predictable.
Mm-hmm.
It's predictable.
Yeah. What about, let's talk about the controversial term parental alienation. And I know some people don't like that term, and we say abuse by proxy or some form of coercive control. But whatever it is, it's where one parent is trying to turn the other parent, trying to turn the children against the other parent. And when we talked a little bit about this, you said it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
So as a parent, you were creating, or you were a party to the development of that in the relationship. It didn't start when you separated. It started before you separated. And whether it is alienation, whether it is a preference for the child, how you look at that, your perspective of that is incredibly important, because regardless of what it was that started it, regardless of what it is that is perpetuating it, the first thing that a parent has to do is look back and go, okay, how did this seed sprout.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the dynamic in the relationship? Because oftentimes we'll have a parent that abdicates their parenting to the other parent. And when they do that, the child leans in that direction because that's where they're getting their nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there is a dynamic in the parenting relationship where there is friction in the parenting, and there is a parenting that wields more power in that. And a child may look at that and go, I'm afraid of that. So I'm going to align with that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get emotionally beat up. And the other parent is sitting here going, wow, I'm the better parent. I do this better, but they're over there.
Mm-hmm.
And when the separation comes, those dynamics continue. And a parent that has been domineering, a parent that has been pulling the child through aggression over or whatever alignment that they're working with, that child has made that choice for a reason. They've made that choice because they deem it's safer for them there. Whether that person is telling the child that the other person is unsafe or that they are actually the unsafe person, but they have to align there, this becomes really difficult to manage. So we have to understand and how to look at this through the child's eyes. And to be able to find people that can help bring this together. I've done a couple of podcasts with some really good therapists that do reunification therapy along this idea. And what they bring in is this notion of family systems. And in order to navigate alienation or preference or whatever we want to call it, we have to understand family systems. But beyond that, we have to get the judicial system to understand that and to create a container in which that can work. And that's not here. So, what do we do as parents to navigate that? And sometimes, sadly, not all things have happy endings here. But how we stay in the game as a parent and how we keep showing up no matter what without being aggressive and without inserting ourselves into a system that is kicking us out all the time can be the long-term path.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's things you can do. And I think that comes back to, like you said, you need to direct your attorney. It can't be the other way around. And a lot of attorneys don't have experience with high conflict cases, and especially with all the alienation stuff. So I think it's on, I mean, one of the things we work with clients on is teaching them how to take strategic oversight of their cases, learning a lot about what this means and what options they have. But like you said, you don't want to come in as aggressive. You don't want to force, how can you force a relationship? Right. I mean, what's the end goal? Again, it goes back to the goals. What's the goal? Do you want to have a kid forced to, you know, I mean, I would think people want to have authentically close relationships with their children. It can take a while to get there, certainly after something like this, but to not have it where your child is terrified.
And in order to achieve that, Lisa, there has to be highly qualified people intervening in the process. And frankly, there aren't that many.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a place where therapists really don't understand this. And that's a broad one. Very few therapists understand this. And finding those people and being able to seek them out and get them engaged, because, you know, that's part of the fight, right? If I am a parent who doesn't want a child to be with the other parent, I'm not going to want to create an opening,
right,
that to occur. And then I've got to go to court to get the court to create the opening, but I'm going to try to cloud that water with incompetent people that aren't going to solve the
Oh,
problem. And I'm going to, right, and I'm going to teach the children to resist the process. And without a strong consequence from the court to be able to do that, it's a problem. And you and I both know people in this arena that advocate for that.
I know. And who suffers?
Right, right. So, that's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother place that has to be learned how to navigate. And when we get into this arena, you know, I have worked with clients for years, teaching them how to sit in a place of grief and engagement until something else happens. And sometimes this occurs when the child becomes an adult and they're outside of the influence. And that doesn't mean that everything just goes boom. I have a favorite movie that Catherine Zeta-Jones and Sean Connery were in. It's called Entrapment. And my favorite line out of that movie is first we try, then we trust.
Mm.
And this is an approach that a child is going to take with a parent, but it's also a place where when we're trying to move from a high conflict situation into something that is more co-parenting, and I want to make a quick statement here. Parallel parenting is a subset of co-parenting. It is co-parenting. It's just another form of it. But when we're trying to move more into that co-parenting movement, we don't just go, okay, they're acting good now, I'm going to jump in and expect them to continue that. Because sometimes that's just the here, kitty, kitty, I'm going to throw you a little bit of bait and see if I can get you to take the hook again.
Definitely.
And so we're going to try. We're going to try for a long period of time. We're going to add a little bit in, but we're going to be cautious, and we're not going to trust it until we've got a foundation in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So of course, Brooke, I have more questions, but I'm like, we have a client in a few minutes. So I know we're going to have to continue this conversation, but before we end, can you tell people how to find you? And again, repeat like what you offer, because we're on your newsletter and there's always things that are going on with you.
We've got a lot of stuff happening. So my website is highconflict.net. You can get our basic stuff from there. If you want to reach out by email, you can email us at info@highconflict.net. We are offering coaching trainings. We are offering high conflict co-parenting classes, both live and video courses. We've got small courses that are specific to that you can find from our disengagement zone. We're opening a membership site here shortly, which will be the disengagement zone. And if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Facebook. We have a support group there. We offer also support groups in small groups for people who want to get more in-person stuff without going big. And so all of that information is available. And we've got a podcast, the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast, that we've got about 290 plus episodes in that cover a ton of subjects. So we're involved in the space in a long-term fashion, trying to give everybody something that they can grab a hold of and help them through the maze.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for talking with me again, and I have a feeling we're going to do this again if you don't mind, because there's so much we didn't get to cover.
Anytime we can just jump in here, and I'm always willing to come play.
Good. All right, Brooke. So I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, bye.
Bye.